Hello, and welcome to Why Am I Like This? The podcast for those who didn't get enough hugs as a child. I'm Laura Wood, and I'm a trauma therapist.
And I'm Michaela Beaver. I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner.
Michaela, why are we doing this podcast?
I'm so glad you asked. We all have patterns we don't fully understand, ways we react, think, and feel that seem to show up no matter how hard we try to change them. On this podcast, we explore how our past experiences, relationships, and nervous system shape who we are today. Together, we ask the question we've all wondered about at some point: why am I like this? And more importantly, how can we understand ourselves with a little more compassion?
Yes, and today we are talking about how our body keeps the score. We read the book by Bessel van der Kolk, The Body Keeps the Score, and I'll link that in the show notes. And so we're going to try to answer the following questions. Why does my body react before my brain? What does trauma actually mean? How can I manage these responses? So to get started, I'm wondering if you can think of a time where your body reacts, but your brain is like, I don't understand this.
Yes, I love that question. I was trying to think of something before we started, and I think like what comes to mind is I was having a conversation with a client, and they asked me a personal question, and I wasn't like really prepared, like, or expecting it. And all of a sudden, like, my face gets bright red, and I wasn't really feeling nervous. Like, I didn't mind answering the question. It was something, super benign. But I think that, like, there was definitely things were not, connecting. Like, I don't know why my body responded in that way.
Yeah. So you're having this response and you're trying to manage that response like with your patient right there. And you're like, I don't know why I'm doing this, but my brain is, or like my body's having this reaction.
Yeah. And they know, obviously they were like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to like embarrass you or whatever. And I'm like, oh no, I'm not embarrassed. I think I was just like taken off guard more than anything. And then I think if I think back to what the real cause was, like, after like kind of like analyzing it a little bit, I honestly think that it was like I was more embarrassed by like the answer, because it was like something that I should have been doing but I wasn't doing. You know what I mean? So I'm wondering if it has more to do with like I guess I'm not being maybe a very good patient myself.
Right? Like I'm about to say that I'm not doing what I tell them to do. And I'm about to admit that, like, I'm not actually, like, taking as good care of myself as I should be or whatever.
Yes, absolutely. What about you? Have you had that experience?
I totally had that experience. I mean, I can relate in the same way with clients. Like, my body, like, whenever it feels like there's, like, a big insight happening or, like, a moment of, like, attunement, my eyes water. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like they're going to think I'm crying. And like, I feel like my face gets red, and I always am like worried that they're going to see that, but like, I can't help it. It just happens. And so like, I use that as information. Like it tells me like, if this is happening for me, like I'm wondering what's happening for them. You know what I mean? Like I'm wondering like if they're having an internal reaction as well. But you had told a story one time, and it reminded me of something that happens for me, which is that like I'll be in a moment and like a stressful moment, and everything will be going, and I'm trying to keep it together and manage and whatever, and I'm kind of just like going along, and then at the end I'll be like, oh, I should have said this, I should have said this, I should have said it, and I'll come up with like all the exact right things to say, like in every single moment, like after the fact. And it's like, that's so annoying. I want my thinking brain to, like, my cognition to be like on when I'm in that stressful situation so that I can handle it like a boss. You know what I mean? Like I can say the right thing. I can totally crush the whole thing, you know? And so like, that's kind of what I thought of.
Well, I wonder if that's part of the reason why our brain shuts off is because we want to crush it. And
Mhm.
that pressure is just like,
Pressure.
"Nope, I'm done."
Yeah, for sure. Like, you know, when I can think about like negotiating for a car or something like that, right? Like, you know, oh, I want this best deal. And then you're like, yeah, okay, I guess. Like, you like cave, right? And then you're like, oh, I should have held my ground. I could have saved another $500 or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's what that's kind of what I think of. Like I should have said this, or like after a fight with like a partner or something like that. And like you get in an argument with your partner and then after it's over, you think of like these zingers, like everything that you would have said like right then and there, like to call them out and to hold them accountable. Like I think about those things as like a really tangible example of how our system is sort of like surviving through those moments, and without with the survival mode, that cognitive part of our brain doesn't necessarily engage as well as it could if we were in a safe, calm space.
Yeah. You think about how basically the frontal lobe or the prefrontal cortex
Mm.
just goes offline, if you will, and none of those thoughts that should be coming are going to come when we're in the survival brain, right?
Right. Yeah, Dr. Dan Siegel calls it flipping your lid. Like you
Oh,
don't have like that lid of the cognitive, like your prefrontal cortex is like, oops, I'm out, I'm off, I'm not there.
yeah. Yes.
Um, yeah, like so why this makes sense. And what's funny is that so I teach when I teach this in my classes, I always teach the channels of information processing, right? Like I teach um that we have a cognitive channel of information processing, an affective or emotional channel of information processing, and a sensory channel of information processing, right? So the question I always ask is, which do you think is the most important? Right? I ask everybody, like, which channel is the most important? And everybody says cognitive. They all raise,
Really? I guess I would have said survival for some reason.
yeah, like sensory, right? Because that has your survival value. Like your
Mhm.
sensory and affective channels are what help they determine safety and danger in the world. And so, but everybody like values initially this cognitive channel of processing, thinking like, oh, well, that's what makes us adapted, you know, evolved humans. Like, you know, our brains, our thoughts, our cognition, our intelligence, right? But the reality is, our cognitive processing channel really has no survival value. Like, if you think about a human as an organism, you don't need that to survive.
Sure. That's really interesting. And the other thing that came up while you were saying that is like, I was thinking, people might be more in tune with like their sensory,
Mhm.
channel or and like oftentimes, not very in tune with their emotional channels, right? You think about people who just like go, 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 push through in the moment. And then all of a sudden they come to see us and then they're like bawling their eyes out and they're like, I never cry. And it's like, well, yeah, because you never engage in your emotional channel.
Right, right. And when you don't engage in your emotional channel, you're not really engaging in the social engagement system, right? So that emotional or affective processing is where we connect with people, right? It's where we determine if you are a safe person for me. Like when I'm a baby, I need to connect with my caregiver. That's that attachment channel. That's where that's happening. And so a lot of us sort of shut that down, and then we're feeling alone in our lives. Like I hear that all the time. Like I just feel lonely. I feel alone. Um,
And why would somebody shut off their emotional, affective channels?
Gosh, for so many reasons. I think pain. Like, I think we shut that down as a defense because we have experienced pain and rejection and abandonment. And when we experience those things, those are so big, they're huge feelings for kids, right? We shut them down after we've experienced those negative feelings as kids. Like, these are not things that happen to us for the first time as an adult.
Right.
These are things that happen to us for the first time as a child, and we learn how to cope with that and we adapt. So, for example, if as a kid I'm experiencing like emotional rejection from my parents, like let's say I bring home a drawing from school and I'm like, mom, dad, look at this drawing that I made. And they're just like, ugh, like, okay, I don't care. I'm busy. Like, as a little kid, I'm like, oh man, like I'm so rejected, right? Okay,
Yeah.
imagine that times 1,000 over and over and over and over and over. Eventually, I'm going to stop bringing them my drawings because they don't care. And it hurts more to have them tell me they don't care than for me to just like go through this process on my own internally and shut down my need for their connection. And that's like a benign, everyone can everyone can remember a time where their parents weren't that interested in something they had to say, because kids sometimes aren't that interesting and their drawings aren't that good. And so
Or they say the same things over and over again.
right. Or their stories don't make sense, or their stories are too long. And so everybody's got that experience. But where we shut it down is if we're experiencing that experience so often and consistently that it's too painful to reach out for that connection. So I always, when I was taught about attachment theory, my trainer shared this metaphor of an electric fence. So an electric fence that's on sometimes, but off other times. Like, you never know if it's turned on. You can't tell until you reach for it. And when you touch it, sometimes it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Other times it shocks you.
Yeah.
So you never really know. And so but you have to go through this fence in order to get past the fence to get food. So you have to reach for it. You have to touch this fence, but you just never know if it's going to shock you. And so shut down or dissociation is the process of like basically putting on rubber protective gloves so that when you reach for that fence, you don't feel anything. Like you numb yourself.
I love that.
Yeah.
I've never thought about it in that kind of way before.
Yeah. So we have to numb ourselves out sometimes in order to protect us from that shock of not feeling the connection that we're looking for when we need it. And that's coming from our affective channel, but like a sensory channel too. Think about athletes. Like athletes who push through pain, like I played on a broken ankle, or I'm running and running and running and my body is telling me to stop, but I'm not going to stop. I'm ignoring that. Mm-hmm. And so they're basically training their brain to numb out that sensory channel. They're saying like, no, don't pay attention to that. Don't listen to that while I'm in this game. And so sometimes that can be healthy and adaptive while they're performing. The trouble is they have to learn how to discern between the athletic performance and regular life. Otherwise, they're going to be sort of numbed out to their body and not listening to those signals and re-injuring themselves and not, if they're not paying attention to those sensory signals, then that can cause them danger and harm later on.
Right, because the body is remembering this, even though we're checked out, we're ignoring, we're dissociating from the thing, the body is going to continue to remember that experience, whether that means that they're going to keep doing that after the fact, or, there's going to be some kind of physical,
Mm-hmm.
experience later that is tied to that potentially.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that makes us numb out our sensory channel is like a physical assault, right? So sometimes when people describe an assault, they say like, oh, I was outside my body. Like I didn't feel anything, right? Like it was and then maybe they felt the pain after, but like during that moment, they numbed themselves to the pain because it was too much, and they went into shock. That's a healthy, adaptive way to get through an assault, is to have your body's doing that for you on purpose. That's a survival mechanism that your body is doing, is taking you out of that moment so that you can go through this and not die, right? And you can survive, and then you can heal later on. The trick is we have to reconnect with our body after that happens. But again, if it's chronic, it's happening over and over and over throughout your childhood, especially, then your body is you're not going to reconnect with your body afterwards. You're going to disconnect from your body. And then you might even have negative feelings towards your body. Like you might feel like it was your body's fault for the assault, like you froze or fawned during that time.
And
then you blame yourself. Exactly. And you're not connected to your body. So a lot of the work in therapy with somatic therapies, but also just, general safety finding, is we connect with our bodies again. We have to learn how to know our bodies there. It's right. It sounds easy.
It's really challenging to do.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't feel like it's safe.
Right. Like our bodies themselves don't feel like a safe place. Because our bodies have memories too. So if I connect with my body, then I'm going to get that memory of the assault, and I don't want to relive that.
Right. So like when we talk about trauma and we talk about big things like, assaults and things like that, but it can also be associated to like chronic stress, like just like, maybe your parents fighting all the time and not, or, not knowing if you're going to get yelled or screamed at, or, if your needs are going to be met, that day. Right.
Yeah. Chronic stress, like, so the ACEs, right? So the adverse childhood experiences study was done by Kaiser Permanente and the CDC. Do you remember when it was done? Was it the 90s?
I don't remember the date.
Yeah. But it was a while back, and it was essentially this huge study where they were looking at different adverse experiences that children go through to try to kind of measure how many kids experience these negative affective experiences. So like, okay, so what were some of the things in the study?
In like the ACEs study, like looking at like parents using substances.
Right.
Divorce is one of them. And parents or like sexual traumas, like emotional abuse, getting screamed at, incarceration of parents or family members. I know I'm missing something else.
Some of them are witnessing the abuse.
Right.
So like watching your mother be harmed by your father, I think is one of them. And then another one is witnessing like, or is feeling unwanted or unloved.
Yeah. But what was interesting is not only did they look at these adverse childhood events to see which ones had a huge impact, or like how many kids were having them, which was an interesting part, is that like a significant portion of the population has at least one or two of these experiences. But they studied these people for a period of, they were looking at these people and actually correlating it with physical health in adulthood. And, looking at so the more adverse childhood events you have in childhood, the more likely you are to have obesity, metabolic disorders like high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, things like that, and mental health considerations like anxiety, depression, and whatnot. So, inflammation, autoimmune disorders. So, there's a direct link between what happens in childhood and your adult life.
Mm-hmm. And you're far more likely to experience substance use disorder
Yeah.
as well. And, when I first learned about the ACEs study, it totally shifted my entire perspective of like, what even is trauma? Because in here is, I felt unloved, I felt unwanted, right? Having that experience, that feeling, like, is a traumatic, adverse experience. Going through, having your parents go through a divorce, having your parents yell and scream at you, not getting your needs met, like neglect. Those things are things that people come in and say, like, oh, I had a normal childhood,
Uh-huh.
right? Like, my parents were fine, they were busy, they worked a lot, or, my dad drank, or was, uh, my mom drank a lot of wine or whatever. Like,
Or my mom was a successful single mom who was working all
right,
the time. Like,
right.
not like when we connected, it was great, but like we didn't connect that often. That's emotional
Hmm.
neglect. Not
Hmm.
purposeful, not intentional. Like you're both just trying to survive, but that's still, not going to be conducive for emotional stability and like long-term mental wellness.
Hmm. And so what that told me was, you can have experienced trauma without being a victim.
Mhm.
Like, you don't have to be a victim of something to have experienced traumatic experience.
Mhm.
Trauma is anything that overwhelms your system to where you don't have the capacity and ability to cope, like, in that moment.
Sure. I mean, I
And
think too about like early parentification of children. That's
mhm,
stressful. That is going to create overwhelm. You're asking a child to act like an adult. They don't
mhm,
have the capacity for that.
mhm. And you're you're looking to a child to solve problems that they don't have control over yet. They don't have the autonomy and the agency, but you're telling them that they need to. I remember just even like with my brother, like fighting with my brother and feeling so helpless and out of control because I couldn't get him to stop like doing whatever I wanted him to stop doing, whether that's like elbowing me in the car or like just those little teasy things where it's like, just stop. Like, I need you to stop. That sense of like out of control is so big. And so imagine you're 10 years old and you're in charge of a 5-year-old or two, and you're trying to get them to like behave, but they have behavioral challenges and you're so out of control and helpless. That's trauma. That is a traumatic experience. So I think
Yeah.
today trauma gets thrown around like, oh, everything's trauma, everything's trauma. And if everything is trauma, then nothing is. But I think we need to think differently about how we define like what that actually means. Because what are we saying when we say trauma? We're saying my system was overwhelmed and I didn't have the capacity to cope in that moment.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. It's not necessarily the situation specifically, it's how you felt in that moment because you could have experienced the same thing that I did, but I felt like
Right.
I had capacity and therefore I didn't feel like it was traumatic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, why do some people get PTSD and other people don't? Like, that is, there's a
Resilient.
lot of factors, resilience, protective factors that go into whether or not you experience PTSD. And one of the biggest things that protects against PTSD is an affective, relational safety, like a safe relational connection right after the traumatic event or during the traumatic event. A safe relational connection during that time is the biggest protective factor against PTSD.
Yes, absolutely. And
So,
what is that? Because they provide safety to your nervous system.
right? They
Yeah.
provide safety to your nervous system. And your affective channel, right? Your sensory processing is not safe, but your affective channel kind of helps bring in that safety. And when you have that sense of safety, then your cognitive channel can come online and it can make sense of what just happened, and it can recognize and tell the story of the event as being an event that happened and you survived and now it's over and you're okay and you're safe and you can move forward. But traumatic events, they're not stored as stories. They're not linearly stored in your brain. And that's why your body reacts and your brain doesn't always know what's happening. Like your thinking brain, right? Your cognitive awareness isn't always sure why I'm having this emotional reaction or why I'm having this physical reaction. But
Well, and I think that goes back to like how our brain encodes things when we're under stress, when cortisol is high, then that part of our brain that encodes memory the cortisol is toxic to that part of the brain, which will lead it to encode memories in fragments. And so like all of a sudden that gray couch, like it's when I see a gray couch, I'm triggered, but I don't really know why the gray couch, because there was a gray couch at some point in time. And now my memory is just saying the gray couch equals danger.
Right. Right. Because it's associating any kind of fragmented memory with the sense of danger, because it's like it's sending you that signal like you need to get out, you need to get out. And you might not know like what it's referring to, right? So like sometimes bringing it back to like associating the thing that's dissociated, right? So it's separated and fragmented. So you associate it with an actual experience and recognize like, oh, that's because of this. It's not actually, the couch isn't actually dangerous.
Correct. Yes. The couch is not dangerous.
Right. So that's one way of managing the experience. What are some other ways of managing these responses?
Well, I think that the first thing that I would start with was just like getting back into the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think that like people will have, this experience where like all of a sudden we're having a panic attack or an anxiety attack or whatever, and we don't really understand why we're feeling the way we're feeling, or all of a sudden like we can't breathe or we get dizzy and we're like feeling, maybe like that same way that we felt back when we were in the traumatic experience. And so I think it's important to remember that like those things don't live in the present moment. And so doing what you can to get back into your body, to get back into the present moment, wiggling your toes, looking around the room, reorienting yourself with like what your age is, where you live, what your phone number is, those kinds of things, is what comes up first for me. What do you?
Well, I was thinking the other thing that does, that getting into the present, it also re-engages your cognition, right? When you're having to think of your phone number or like say your phone number backwards, for example, like you're having to engage that prefrontal cortex. So you're inviting it to come back online in a variety of ways, right? So it's like safety, present day, like in the present there is no danger, and that cognition is coming back online, and that prefrontal cortex acts as a regulator for your brain.
Yeah.
So I think another thing that you can do is like progressive muscle relaxation. So like a specific body-based send signals to your body that you're safe. Because if you can intentionally relax your muscles, what you're telling your amygdala and your brain, your limbic system, you're telling that part of your brain that there is no danger, meaning I'm allowed to relax. It's safe to relax. And so you're sending that signal of safety to your brain. So clenching your jaw, relaxing your jaw, tensing your shoulders, relaxing your shoulders, clenching your fists, relaxing your fists, right? Like doing those things on purpose are telling your brain like, oh, it's safe to do this right now. I don't have to be stuck in this muscle tension, this hypervigilance state.
Sure. Well, and I think that it's good, especially like the neck and shoulders and jaw and stuff, and like clenching and relaxing those parts are especially helpful because when you're in that fight or flight response, extra blood is flowing to those areas to prepare your body to like react, to run, to fight, all of those things. And so by relaxing that, you're kind of counteracting some of that, what's actively happening in the anxiety state.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, one of the other things that I was thinking was obviously, trauma is anything that the nervous system didn't have the capacity to process at the time, right? So if we
Mm-hmm.
didn't have the capacity to process it at the time, and if we haven't fully processed it yet, then it's still going to be stored and it's going to be disjoint. But if we can go back and do therapy
Yeah.
to you know improve that connection and help it be something that can be processed in a safe way, then we're not going to maybe have the same effect, or we might, but we'll be able to get back. It's going to be easier to get back out of that dysregulation and shutdown.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that makes therapy most effective actually is the safety in the therapeutic relationship. So you
Mhm.
can have a mediocre therapist, but if you have that safety and connection in the therapeutic relationship, that's doing so much work for your nervous system that like it's not about the interventions that your therapist uses. It's actually about the safety in the room and the connection in the relationship. So that's like a novel experience for your nervous system to sort of have that sense of safety. That's actually restorative and reparative. And
Mhm.
then a type of therapy, EMDR therapy, the R in EMDR stands for reprocessing. So you're reprocessing the memory in a safe way, in a safe state, and you're allowing all parts, all channels of processing to incorporate and consolidate that information and tell it as a cohesive story instead of fragmented. So it's putting all
Right.
those pieces together. It's like if you have you know, a piece of a broken vase, you're gluing all the pieces back together. And
Yeah.
so there's still going to be that residual experience of like sadness, like, oh, I wish it wasn't. It's not perfect, but it's okay enough, right? It's good enough.
Yeah. Well, and one of the other things that I like about EMDR specifically is that you're actually reprocessing the physical sensations in the body as well. And so
Right.
you're helping to improve those and desensitize that response.
Hmm. Yeah, you're inviting your body to remember where you feel the stuff and what sensations your body is experiencing, and you're inviting your body and brain to process that and really consolidate that into the memory and tell the story.
Yeah. Another thing that we talked about previously on the OCD stuff is like naming it to tame it. And so I
Hmm.
wonder, like, just being able to how does just being able to go, oh, my body's reacting to trauma right now. Like, how do you think that would impact our response?
Oh yeah, I think that's really important because what it's doing is it's orienting, right? You're saying, "Oh, I'm reacting to something that's a memory. It's not happening right now." And that's easier said than done, right? Because traumatic memories aren't stored as stories. They're stored as they're relived as states. And so the hippocampus, like the part of your brain that's sort of activated in this traumatic memory situation and has a lot to do with memory storage, it doesn't know the difference between past and present. It doesn't have access to the time component
Hmm.
when you're experiencing a traumatic memory. So it doesn't know you're remembering. It's implicit. It's not explicit. It doesn't explicitly understand that you're remembering. And so when you name it and you say that out loud, or you say that in your brain, or you send signals to your body that you're remembering, that can be helpful. But that's going to be inconsistent with what you feel. So you're having to know that feelings aren't facts in that moment. Like I can feel like something's happening right now, and I can know that as fact, it's not happening right now.
Well, yeah, because you can also ask yourself, am I safe?
Hmm.
In this moment, am I okay? And
Hmm.
then that can also be reorienting.
Right. Right. So that orientation to your surroundings and to your body can be really restorative. And you don't always have to, I think it's important, you don't always have to know where it's coming from, like where the trigger is coming from, or like what memory it's coming from. You can just say, I know that this isn't about what's happening right now. Like, I can't remember who said it. I was listening to a podcast recently and they said, if it's hysterical, if I'm hysterical, it's historical.
I love that.
Right?
That's hilarious.
So basically what that means is if my reaction is too big, this isn't about what's happening right now. So the way that I say that sometimes is the problem isn't the problem.
Yeah.
So remembering that can be helpful.
Yes, that's hilarious.
Yeah, so I wish I could give credit to that statement, but I can't remember who said it.
I think, that's important to remember, though. Like, if the problem, like, my reaction's really big, this isn't about right now. This isn't about this.
Yeah, it's hard to tell sometimes. So the other thing is practicing like mindfulness, meditation, calm skills, safety cues. Practicing regulating your nervous system is something that you need to be doing all day, every day. It's not just to use in case of emergency, because you can't always know when you're in that state. You can't tell. Your brain inherently doesn't realize, right? Like if you don't know that you're remembering, there's nothing in there saying, oh, let me use this helpful tool. Like your cognition is offline. So using those tools as habits is going to get your body to start automatically applying those things in cases of distress, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that like people who have that I've worked with, especially people that have like borderline tendencies, which is a response to trauma.
Right.
Those, I've heard them say like, I can know they're hysterical in the moment, and they can know that their reaction is so big and they don't want it to be, but they feel incapable of like reining it back in, like, so that like, we've in DBT, you talk about like the wise mind, the emotional mind, and the logical mind, and right. So it's like we want to get to this place where we're not stuck in emotion and we're not stuck in logic, that we're able to use all those things together. But sometimes when, for whatever reason, the body, reacts in those ways, and it takes time to learn how to calm down your nervous system, because you can literally be aware of it and feel as though it's out of your control. So I think like if you're the reason I started thinking about that was because you said hysterical, and I'm like, if you're hysterical, the first thing that you need to do is calm your body down, do your calming techniques, and work your way into a regulated state, because we just don't make great choices. At least I don't make great choices when I'm upset. So I don't know about the rest of you.
No, I tend not to be at my best.
Yeah.
And that's important to note, because you're not going to ignore the problem after that. You're going to solve it, but you have to solve it from a state where you have access to all three channels of processing, right? You have access to your emotion, your cognition, and your senses. You can solve, like, you calm yourself down, regulate yourself, and then solve the problem, right?
And the same thing goes for kids. Like, how many times do you want to yell at your kid when they did something stupid and they're dysregulated? Like all the time. I just want to like be like, what are you thinking? But you have to wait for them to calm their nervous system down. Otherwise they can't learn. They can't even think about the situation in a different way because they're not regulated.
Yeah. Trauma prevents us from being able to learn from our experience from a sense of safety, because we have this like inherent unresolved sense of danger. So regulating your nervous system all the time, like all day, every day, is the key to bringing those skills up when you need them.
Oh my gosh, that just like, I don't know what it was about what you said or how you said it, but I was just like, so that friend that, doesn't seem to learn and repeats the same things over and over again. I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense. Like I can empathize with them so much more because they're not in a state in which learning can occur.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So we can have empathy and we can have compassion for ourselves and for others who are experiencing these big responses and doesn't feel in control, right? I think that's an important lesson too, is have empathy and compassion, not only for other people, but have it for yourself.
I think, it's so weird. Why is it so much harder to care for ourselves than it is to be like, I just asked a kid today, like, would it be okay if your friend did this? No.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But like, it's okay if we do,
Mm-hmm.
So why do we not have compassion for ourselves?
I don't know. Maybe that's our next episode.
Ooh, I like that.
So I think that's a good place to leave it. Have compassion and empathy for yourself. You can't just think your way out of something your body's still holding on to. You have to use these skills regularly and consistently in order for your body to start engaging them on its own. So thank you so much. Thank you for this conversation as always. And thank you for listening to Why Am I Like This? If you like our show, please leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. Follow the show and share it with your friends. This episode was written and produced by me, Laura Wood, and Michela Beaver. Our theme song is Making Ends Meet by Thick as Thieves, and a special thanks to Core Self, Benevari Counseling and Coaching, and Active Healing Psychiatric Services for sponsoring our show.